Hey guys, Josh here, and I recently got the chance to play the demo for Mirthwood, an upcoming game that takes inspiration from Fable, Stardew Valley, and RimWorld. In this video, I'll walk you through my experience, tell you what I liked and disliked about it, and hopefully it should give you a good idea of whether or not you want to try the demo for yourself, or maybe wishlist the game on Steam. It was actually my second time with this game. I played a demo at PAX East last year, which I did talk about in the video, but it was limited to 15 minutes and I did not capture any footage, so there was only so much I could talk about. This new demo, however, lets you play for a bit more than 3 in-game days. It showcases most of the important features and just has a lot more content. The first thing to note with this game is that it is quite dark. Most of the farming games I cover on this channel are cute and cozy, and this one is a bit of a departure from that, so just keep that in mind. As you can see, some very bad things happened. It starts as your village is burning down because of war, and you're trying to flee and make a fresh start. But first, we need a character. There is a good quantity of options for appearance. I could select a body type between male and female, change my size and my height, then I got to pick between a few skin colors, hairstyles, and facial features. Nothing out of the ordinary, but it worked and things became more interesting as I got to pick my origin. The region you're from determines your character's personality trait like assertive, agreeable, curious, conscientious, or introverted. I went with introverted because I am, and I don't spend too much time interacting with NPCs in most games. I then got to pick a class between royal, noble, and peasant, each giving 1 pro and 1 con. I wanted to achieve as much as possible during this short demo, so I picked peasant, which meant that my energy would decrease slower. I would just struggle a bit more socially, which I'm already used to as an introvert. Lastly, I had to pick a profession, so there was herbalist, tinkerer, farmer, actor, criminal, fighter, and ratcatcher. And similarly to the class, each came with 1 pro and 1 con. I opted for the criminal, which would make my goods more valuable, but like all of my other choices, it would also make it more difficult to make friends. The character creation reminded me a bit of the Elder Scrolls games, in which you pick a few traits or stats that will influence how you'll play the game, and depending on how noticeable these differences are, they could add a lot of replay value to the full game. Before fleeing the town, I picked up some clothes in my house, I said goodbye to my father, and another guy who was my brother, I think, and they were both taking care of my mom who got injured. I quickly stumbled upon a raider, and one thing I remember from my first time with this game was how I struggled with the combat. This time somehow it felt a lot less clunky, and I can't pinpoint why exactly, but I could feel an improvement. Attack is left click, heavy attack is shift and left click, block is right click, and then you've got a roll and a dodge with V and spacebar. I'm still not too sure of the difference between those two, but I did pretty well with just dodging. It's the kind of combat system where you do have to be careful and time your attacks right. It's not extremely difficult, but you also can't just mindlessly smash your way through fights, which is refreshing for a game in this genre. Shortly after my first battle, I got introduced to the morality and renown mechanics of the game. 2 guards were about to kill this man who was supposed to watch the village bridge during the raid, but he left it unguarded, letting attackers attack the village. He explained that the reason he left was to intercept a group aiming to poison the water supply. So I had the choice to ignore the situation, free the guy, or kill him. I decided to free him, and then one of the guards started attacking me, so I had to defend myself. The guy I freed unfortunately did not reward me with anything, so I don't know if it was worth it, as I also lost 5 morality points, but I gained 10 renown points. Some of your actions in this game will affect these stats, which is one of the mechanics that is clearly inspired by the Fable series, and eventually you can expect characters to react to you differently depending on your reputation. Of course, during this short demo, it didn't make much of a difference, but I hope the game will give us lots of decisions that will have an impact, which once again could give a lot of replay value for those who want to try different routes. With all of these fights in the beginning area, it didn't take too long to level up my melee skills. Mirthwood has 6 skills, so there's melee, archery, farming, trades, charisma, and survival, with each level giving you some bonus stats, and eventually some cards with extra perks that you can use to build a hand of 5 cards. I didn't get to unlock any cards in my playthrough of the demo, but I do like the idea of customizing your character build with cards that you unlock as you progress. I eventually made it to the docks, hopped on a ship, and we sailed towards the free lands.
wars that bitter conflict and ceaseless war engulfed the continent. Those who dared to brave the sea fled.
There was a narrator during these important story moments, which I did not expect at first, and coupled with the sound effects, music, visual effects as well, like the rain or the flames, I really enjoyed the atmosphere of Mirthwood, and you can tell the small team behind it put a lot of work to create an immersive experience. After the long journey, I found a cooking pot where I made a few baked apples. Cooking is pretty straightforward, there's a list of recipes, so it doesn't seem like you have to learn them first. Just click on whichever you want to cook and it's instant. I then met with a stranger who asked me to deliver a horse to another stranger, which sounded a bit strange, but I did it. And I was hoping I could maybe keep the horse or at least control it myself, but it was all just a cutscene to get me to the starting point of my new life. I may not have had the chance to keep the horse, but the stranger I delivered it to did give me this abandoned farm. I was told to get some rest, so I went inside the house or whatever was left of it, and slept on the bed for a bit. When I woke up, a counter got added to the top right of the screen, telling me I had 3 days to make the most out of my time with the demo. The farm was looking pretty rough, but I took advantage of the build mode to place down some paths for free. I could pick between dirt and cobblestone for this demo. I went for cobblestone and I connected the house to the south and east entrances of my land. It works a bit like in The Sims, where you just paint the terrain, and I think it's a pretty clever mechanic. It makes it easy to start planning the layout of your farm, even without resources, and the free-flowing style without the grid makes it work seamlessly with the art of the game. I then noticed a workbench and a chest filled with stuff, which were added to make progression a bit easier in the demo. I grabbed a bunch of tools and seeds and I got to work. Instead of your typical hotbar, this game has a wheel that you can open by pressing tab, and there is one slot for weapons, one for tools, one for seeds, one for food, and so on, and you can rotate between specific items using Q and E. I found it to be pretty intuitive, and it makes the UI a bit cleaner since you don't constantly have a toolbar taking space at the bottom of your screen. There was no grid when tilling the soil, and while I thought that having no grid was nice for the paths, it made my garden look a bit messier than I would have liked. I'm sure I could get used to it though, and thinking of it now, I could have probably put some dirt paths underneath to make everything look a bit nicer. I planted all of my seeds, then I watered them with this pot that covered about 4 crops at a time depending on their placement. After farming, my character was starting to feel hungry. There are 3 stats to keep an eye on in this game: health, which decreases as you take damage in combat, energy, which decreases as you run or do some actions, and then hunger, which decreases over time. I ate the baked apples I made earlier, and my stomach was full again, ready to get back to work. I grabbed my pickaxe and my axe and I started clearing some of the rocks and trees that were on my land. It went well for the most part, but one thing that slightly annoyed me was how every time I clicked with a tool in hand, it cancelled the action and started it over. So sometimes I would click a bit too early while my character was still swinging his tool, resetting the action. It's not that big of a deal, but in most games you don't have that issue, as your character will either do a full swing with each click, or you can simply hold the left click continuously. So that is one thing I hope that could be reworked in order to make the experience feel a bit better. I did manage to get a good amount of resources pretty quickly though, and I used them to craft a keg. I placed it in my house, if we can really call it a house, and I noticed a button to toggle a grid, which I tried doing, but nothing happened. Maybe it's still being implemented. Keep in mind this is a demo, so some things might not be fully functional, but I love when games give you the choice between free placement and a grid, as it's truly the best of both worlds when it works. I put some grains in the keg and then I went to bed. When I woke up, my beer was ready and I started making some wine. The ingredients for these drinks were all in the starting chest, but I imagine they'll probably take a while to get in the full game. At that point, I had 2 quests. One was to harvest crops, which would still take a little bit of time, and the other one was to head to Bright Oak, the closest town. So that's what I did. I headed south and I got to Bright Oak, where I met the first villagers I could fully interact with. The social mechanics are interesting in this game, as you can either quickly greet or jeer someone, and I didn't know what jeer meant, but it didn't go well, and you can also have more complex interactions. Once again, just like in The Sims, you have different categories, so there's chat, jest, romance, gossip, and influence, and then within each of these categories, you have specific actions to choose from. You can do the same actions over and over again or try different ones, and it's really just like in The Sims where some of them will work better than others, depending on your relationship with that character and their personality traits. Each character has a profile where you can see their name, origin, class, and job, as well as their mood, your friendship and romance status with them, and I like how these are separate so you can be close to someone without necessarily having to go the romantic route. Each character also has different traits. For example, this one is a romantic and a night owl, and then you've got more about their personality with these bars, like whether the person is violent or gentle, impulsive or cautious, and so on. I really like how all of this looks so far, and of course it is one thing to see all of these stats and traits in the menu, but I am hoping that these will actually be noticeable in gameplay. Unfortunately, the guy walked away while I was looking at his profile, and I was then unable to proceed with any action. The X button also didn't work, and I was just completely stuck. This demo does not allow you to save, so I just had to quit and start over. Luckily, an option exists to skip the tutorial, so after creating my character for a second time, I got to start right at the farm. Skipping the tutorial though also meant that I did not have as many items, food, or equipment, so if it is your first time playing, I would recommend not skipping it. I gathered materials, crafted a keg, and planted my crops all over again, then I returned to Bright Oak. I tried interacting with these two villagers, but it wouldn't let me since they were already busy with each other, but maybe that was for the best. As I explored the small town, I accepted two quests. One was asking me to eliminate Reginald Darcy, who was likely hiding in a tower near a bridge, and the other one asked me to investigate the Medville meadery, as the shipments of mead had stopped and the owner, Duncan Medville, had not been seen for weeks. Before going back home, I did manage to strike up a conversation with someone. The game did not get stuck. So I got to try a few different interactions, and when I tried to cheer them up, for some reason, in return, they threatened to threaten me, whatever that means. I woke up quite hungry the next day, and I was out of food since I had skipped the tutorial. So I went out and explored the wilderness in hopes of finding something. I met a bandit at some camp. The fight was a bit tricky since I no longer had an armor, but I did make it through. I found no food, but I got this helmet and this dress, which was not the armor I was hoping for, but it was much better than nothing. I did eventually find some berries as well as some cheese and bread, which would sustain me for a little while. My next goal was Reginald Darcy. I crossed the bridge and there I found the tower and of course the guy I was tasked with eliminating. He was a lot smarter than most enemies as he kept parrying my attacks, which would stun me, and it made things quite difficult. I almost died. But I did get the last word or the last swing, and I got rewarded with some morality and renown. Even better, I went through his chest and I found some more food as well as a new armor. The next quest I wanted to tackle was the one at the Medville meadery, located on the north part of the map. After getting rid of a bandit and grabbing some of the mead for myself, I found a few letters that made it seem like the daughter of Duncan and Sibylla, the owners, was suffering from some illness and they were doing everything they could to find a cure, but as all of this was going on, the quality of the mead was declining and things were not doing well. I found a chest upstairs, but while trying to open it, I was told I couldn't carry any more materials. I tried dropping things from my inventory, which can be done by pressing D on the keyboard, but for some reason it behaved very weirdly. It was dropping completely different items than what I was selecting with my cursor, and picking them back up was also confusing, since there would be a pop-up showing I could take an item, but without telling me their name or showing them on the ground, so I was just dropping and picking stuff up completely randomly. It just felt so chaotic, a bit frustrating to be honest. I eventually ended up with an inventory I was somewhat okay with. I had to leave a few things behind, and then I found a bedroom key and decided to check it out. And there I found Duncan, who had taken his own life with a sword, and he left a note, which, to summarize, said that his daughter had passed away, and his wife Sibylla left him. It was very sad, and I'm trying to keep the video lighthearted, but it was sad, which might not be for everyone, but I like it. I think it is refreshing to have games in the farming sim genre that can approach darker topics, where everybody is not just happy all the time. I think that the best, most memorable stories I can connect to often have sad moments in them, so I like to see it. The remaining parts of this questline will be to search for Sibylla, see what she's up to or if she's still alive. and also to restore the meadery, so who knows, maybe we'll get to run it or something. For the demo, however, these quests were locked and the only one I had left was harvesting my crops. I then only had 1 day left, my crops were not ready quite yet, so I made sure to water them and I thought I would decorate my farm a bit. I gathered some more stone and wood, then crafted fences along with a wooden lamp. Placing the fences was pretty fun as you just place the posts and they automatically connect to each other no matter the angle. So you can create really organic structures as you're not confined to fences that only go in 1 or 2 directions. I found them a bit expensive to craft, at least in the beginning, since they require 5 stones for just 1 fence, but this might not be a problem with the full game when you're not as rushed with time. I also tried placing my wooden lamp, but it wouldn't work. I selected it in my inventory, I even got a little notification saying placing wooden lamppost, but it was nowhere to be seen. I tried making a stone lamp as well to see if that would work, but I got the same problem. I was struggling with my inventory getting full again, so I went to Bright Oak and I found a stall where I could sell my things, and I also took the opportunity to buy a bit of furniture. Just beside was this marketplace where I could see different trade routes as well as the goods that were in demand with increased value and those in supply with decreased value. Just like the relationship mechanics, it all looks quite interesting, but it is a bit hard to evaluate how well it works within just a few days. I do like the idea that you may have to be careful about not growing the same type of crops all the time, making sure you sell them at the right moment, and maybe take advantage of the different trade routes. There were also some requests either from individuals that would reward you with relationship points, or bigger orders that would reward with valuable items and money, and it looks like these ones might need to be delivered via a caravan that can be upgraded. When I got back home, my crops were ready to be harvested, and the soil was dry again, so contrary to most games where all of the farming stuff updates once a day, it seems like it updates multiple times a day in Mirthwood. I decorated my house a bit with the furniture I had just bought, and on my last day, when there was 0 day left on the counter, a 5-minute countdown started. I had done all of the quests in the demo, at least as far as I know, so I decided to just explore the world in search of something new. The demo is restricted to 1 region, so even though the map looked pretty big, and it seems like there were different biomes even, but I could only go so far before encountering a wall. In these last few minutes, I managed to find a cave, but I couldn't enter, so that was pretty much it. So I'll give you my thoughts on Mirthwood after having played the demo. I absolutely loved the atmosphere of the game, from the graphics to the music and the storytelling. I feel like the darkness of it all is a nice change from your typical farming or life sim game. I also like the amount of freedom the game gives you, from the different traits you pick when creating a character, to their morality system, along with the various interactions with the NPCs. I will have to play the full game to see if those things make enough of an impact to be noticeable, but if they do, they could add so much replay value and make each playthrough quite unique, just like in the Elder Scrolls or Fable. I also enjoyed the combat a lot more than the first time I played. I'm not sure if they actually changed it or if it's just because I was not under the same time pressure, but it seemed like the right amount of difficulty to make it feel fun and rewarding, but also not too tedious or unapproachable. I did encounter a few bugs and things that did not work too well, but considering that it is a demo, I am hopeful that all of these can be fixed before the release, which is currently planned for the 3rd quarter of 2024. Overall though, I had a really good time with Mirthwood. It takes a ton of inspiration from other games that I love, all while having its own identity, and I can't wait to play more of it. Let me know if you've played the demo and if you're planning to get this game when it comes out or not. Leave a like and subscribe for more content like this, and I'll see you all in the next video.